Hi everyone, welcome to sketching. I hope you're having a great day. And today I thought what I'm going to do is I'm going to start on my traditional art series where I'm going to go through some of the materials that I use. This is kind of a follow-up from my 30-day sketching challenge, so if you haven't already checked that out, do subscribe to the channel below and have a look at the 30-day sketches that I did using my iPad Pro. And this is, like I said, a follow-on from that. So the first stage was to do the sketching challenge, where you're just getting used to sketching every day, having that good habit of drawing something, anything, whether it's your day-to-day food that you're eating, or whatever comes in your way on a day-to-day life. But for 30 days regularly drawing something every day, not to make it a complete drawing, but just to get something on paper or on tablet, digital if you're working digitally. And what that will do is it'll kind of get you into the habit of drawing every single day without having to think about it too much. So it's a kind of effectively a warm-up exercise is what I call it. So hopefully if you haven't already tried that, do give that a go and let me know in the comments below how that's going for you. And once you have completed that, you can move on to this next stage, which is kind of really the getting used to your materials and your supplies. So what I'm going to do in this video is I'm just going to quickly go through some of the materials and supplies that I'm going to be going into in more detail in the upcoming videos in this stage 2 of my Get Back Into Art series. So here we go. So I've just basically laid out some of the kind of basic materials that I use. At this stage, I mean, if you want to get back into art, and you're struggling to basically to find your feet, if you like, and you don't know where to go, there's so many art supplies out there, you don't know what to start on, or if you've never been into art and you've always wanted to start in art, then there's just so many things when you go out there in the art shops or online. There's so many grades of pencils, pens, papers, and you just don't know where to start. Then this is definitely the type of lessons that I'm going to go through on a day-to-day basis that will help you make that decision. And I'm going to break it down into really, really small, easy steps so that it's not too much information all in one go. So again, this particular video today, all I'm doing is just a quick little review, little discussion on kind of some of the things that I work on. I'm a graphic designer, illustrator, and an artist. It's quite a bit of a mouthful there, I know, but in my day-to-day job, my full-time job, I work as a graphic designer, so I work in digital. I use a little bit of traditional in my art as well. And then on my illustration and on my painting side, on the artist side, I use a lot of traditional materials, whether it be colour pencils like we have here, a lot of pen and ink work, a lot of painting. I do abstract painting, I do landscapes, I do all sorts. So I'm kind of going to focus on the areas and the things that I do, and hopefully you'll pick up something from this. So yeah, so before I kind of go off on a random talk about something else, I think I need to focus and bring it back into what this video is all about. So let's get started. So yeah, so basically the kind of, to start anything, you really kind of need to start on basics, and to be able to start on basics, you just really need the basic tools. So my advice would be, just get yourself some basic pencils. So I mean, I've not got all my pencil sets here because I've got like drawers full of all the different grades of pencils that I use, but I've just selected the ones that I could find in my top drawer. And I know that's a little one, that's probably one that my 5-year-old would use, but it's just, these are just so cheap to get hold of. I mean, I've got a 2B here. I usually use 2B, 4B and 6B. But what I'm going to do is, on each of these materials that I have here today that I'm just going to briefly mention, I'm going to have individual videos on those kind of materials. So I'm going to have an individual video on pencils, different types of pencils that you can get, the grades you can get, and what my recommendations would be from the experience that I've gained over these years, the different pen and ink that you can get, the types of pens that you can get and the textures that you can create with them, paper, coloured pencils, and probably a little bit of acrylic and watercolour paints, because these are kind of the main mediums that I use. So yeah, so again, to kind of really start off, you just need some paper and a couple of pencils, a couple of decent pencils and some decent paper. I mean, for the 30-day sketching challenge, you don't need any of this. I would say, if you're going to do it on traditional, just grab yourself whatever cheap pencil you can find, or whatever's lying about in your house. Just get yourself some of this cheap printer paper. I mean, I don't recommend you do real artwork when you're on to stage, well, this stage and the next stage, which is going to be stage 3, where we're going to go through a big project. I wouldn't really recommend copier paper, so printer paper for that type of work, but for the 30-day sketching challenge, which I've already done, but copier paper, no problem at all. I wouldn't waste any money on anything like fancy or anything like that. All you need is a little bit of copier paper to just do your little marks on, and happy days. So yeah, so we've got pencils here. I use a lot of pencils, do a lot of graphite work. Got a couple of different styles of pencils. So these are just the standard pencils that you get in the shops, and then here we have like a complete graphite pencil here. So this is just all graphite. I use this for kind of shaving and using graphite powder. So again, a lot of more detailed discussion will be on these in the coming videos. And I got a couple of technical pens here. I've got a couple pencils. I've got like a clutch pencil here, and these are pretty good, especially when you start going into this stage and in stage 3, if this is the medium that you want to use. So again, I'll go into more detail with these later on. So we've got, number one, we've got our pencils, and then we have, so I'll just move these onto the side, and then we have our pens. So like I said before, I do a lot of pen and ink drawing. I love my old school pen and ink drawing, especially the real old school stuff, which is this type of stuff here, which we call the pen, the nib and holders. I don't know if you can see that on the actual video itself, but I'll see if I can get a zoom in. But yeah, so these are really old school, these, and obviously not everybody's gonna have these or want to work with these, but I just think they're absolutely brilliant. So just show you over here, these are just so awesome. And again, there's going to be a separate video on how to use these. So a lot of kind of like texture work and fine line work is done with this tool here. So yeah, so we've got a couple of them over here, and over here I've got my micron pens. So these are kind of the fine liner set that I have, that I do a lot of my cross hatching work on, a lot of my inking, lining work on. So this is a great kind of set to have. I mean, in the UK, these are quite hard to get hold of. You can get them in the US and in Japan very easily, but over here in the UK, you can't really get these in the shops, so you've got to get them online. And what I'll do is I'll leave a link in the description below where you can get all these materials that I've kind of quickly gone through today. So yeah, so we've got a nice set of different types of fine liners over here. I tend to use a range of them depending on the type of work that I'm doing. So yeah, so these are a great pen set to have. And then you've got the standard Bic off. So from the pen range, you just can't, you can't go wrong with a Bic. I mean, everyone has a Bic pen. It's so cheap and so easy. You can easily make marks on them, scribble with them, and even if it breaks, you're not going to be too upset about it, because they're only about 20p or something. So yeah, so you've got your Bic pen. What other pens do we have? So we've gone through the classic old school pen and nib and holders. And then you've got your markers. You've got your standard kind of big markers like your Sharpies, chisel tip, fat chisel tip, and then we've got the standard fine liners. So yeah, so these are quite easily accessible, and you can get them in all shops. These are good to kind of do heavy outlining, or a lot of kind of like darker work that you want to do. And over here what I've got is I've got pencil extenders. I don't know if you've seen these before, but these are kind of basically to use when your pencils have gone like that small. So all you do here is you just put these in, and it's just a pencil extender, exactly what it says on the tin. You tighten up the edge, and you've got you can use the rest of the remaining life of that pencil to your heart's desire. So so there you go, great little tool to have. You can use this for your pencils, you can also use this for your color pencils. So I would recommend getting one of these, but again, I'll be going through this in the pencil video and recommending the exact types that you should go for, purely from my own experience. I mean, there's loads of brands and types that you can have, but again, if you're new to it all, then sometimes you end up buying things that are really expensive and they're not good, or you end up buying something that's really cheap and that's not good, and it's that middle way, or whatever works best for you. Because sometimes things might work best for me that don't really work good for yourself, and it could be vice versa. So again, it's just experimental. All I can do is kind of advise on the things that I've experience to kind of give a more like, you know, a middle way type of advice, if you like. So yeah, so again, over here what I've got is a Copic marker. So this is one of my Copic markers that I use. I generally not tend to use like a full range of markers for you know, for my artwork, but I do use the greys, so I use like quite a lot of the grey shades. So we've just got like a cool grey, and these are great to add shadows. So again, I'll go through you know, the types of markers that I use and what I recommend that you should get if you're starting off in art. And here we've got like the inks that I use for the pen and nib, the nib holders. These are great Indian inks that work really, really well. But again, there's going to be a separate video on the inks. There's going to be a separate video on the pencils. And over here, what we have is we have our set of erasers. Rubbers, erasers, whatever you want to call them. So we've got different types of eraser tools here. We've got a putty eraser. So these are really good to kind of, you know, for creating highlights basically and rubbing out some of the marks that you don't need. We've just got a standard Mars plastic eraser here, really cheap to get hold of. And these ones, I would say I use these quite a lot. So we have an electric eraser here, which kind of works with this button here. I don't know if you can see that, but it's really, really good and easy to kind of, you know, wipe out like, you know, general pencil marks. And then we've got a big fat eraser here where you have more control to kind of add in highlights, you know, rub off scrap edges. And then I've got a thin one here, a Tombow Mono Zero eraser. These are great to do fine detail. But again, I'm going to go through, there's going to be a separate video of the different types of erasers that you can buy and, you know, which ones work best with what. And then finally, from the tool aspect of things, we've got the sharpeners. So you always need a good sharpener. In the end of the day, pencils break all the time. So I've been through so many, but over the years, these are the best ones that I've found. Now this one here is, this is a different sharpener. This is not a standard sharpener. This is for the mechanical pencil. So it's for this clutch pencil over here, but I will show you how to use this in the pencils video that I do. So yeah, so a range of sharpeners. And tools that we have over here. Rulers, always need a ruler to do straight lines. I mean, you know, you're never gonna, well, I can never do the perfect straight line unless I'm working really, really fast, but there's no rule to say that, well, there's no rule to say that you can't use rulers, but yeah, it's just a handy tool to have, you know, when you're doing your artwork. And over here, all we've got here is we've got some dark pencils, Lumograph Mars pencils. I would recommend these when we come on to the later stages, but again, these will get reviewed with the pencils video. Great for really, really dark work. And over here I've got my set of coloured pencils. I do a lot of colour pencil work, and I've got a range of colour pencils that I use. I've got the Derwent Colour Soft, I've got the Prismacolor Premier pencils, Faber-Castell pencils, great pencils, these ones. I've got Inktense, I use these, but to be honest with you, I don't really use these that much, but I might, you know, I might just have a bit of a mess around with them if I feel like it, if I'm bored. But my main two pencils are really these Faber-Castell and these Polychromos Prismacolor ones. I personally think these are the best ones that you can get hold of. There are more. There's the Caran, I think it's Caran d'Ache. I've got a couple of Caran d'Ache pencils, but they're quite pricey, they are. So I tend not to use them on full pieces. I just use the specific colours for the type of work that I do. So yeah, so there's going to be another video on coloured pencils, the pros and cons of, you know, which colour pencils to use. I mean, you don't have to buy expensive colour pencils, you can buy cheap ones. Even Crayola do decent pencils, but in the end of the day, if you're getting back into art, there's no point spending silly amounts of money on buying loads and loads of materials. It's just narrowing it down and starting off small, and then kind of building your skill set, and then trying to explore what works good for you, and then that way you can kind of, like, you know, invest that money into something that you really like, rather than having to, you know, buy palette colour pencils, buy ink, pencils, you know, paints, and loads of different grades of paper. And coming onto the paper now, again, as I mentioned before, copier paper, printer paper is it's great for just quick little sketches that are not finished pieces, you know, a bit of doodle sketching, just a bit of practice, but not for finished pieces because of the grain of the actual paper, especially if you're doing artwork to kind of, like, you know, really promote yourself and, you know, have a portfolio of, or if you want to sell your art. then I wouldn't really recommend this. This is just for personal practice. And then the next grade is just the normal sketchbooks that you can get in the shop, the cheap ones. I would recommend definitely getting some of these because they come in decent grade paper. So this one I've got, I think this was only, how much was £1.85, so it was just from a local art store, £1.85. Just get yourself a couple of these if you want to start, just to do your everyday sketching in. You have a nice grade thick paper in there, so it'll beat the copier paper that you use. It's a lot better to use these, and the great thing about these are they're nice and compact. It's an A5 size, this, so you can easily fit in your bag with your pencil case, with a couple of pencils, eraser, sharpener. That's all you really need to start sketching. So I would get yourself a couple of these. And then we have more kind of specialist paper. We have acrylic paper, so these are kind of thicker grades of paper with a lot of texture on them to kind of be able to take watercolor and acrylic, and then we have watercolor over here. I just grabbed hold of whatever I could, really, that was in my drawer. There's a lot more grades of paper that I use depending on the kind of materials that I'm using, the tools that I'm using, but these were kind of like just in my front drawer, on my top drawer. So this is another paper that I use. This is extra smooth hot press paper, and I'm going to go through what all these mean in the paper video that I do, the books and paper video that I do. And this is one that I use quite a lot. It's heavyweight paper by Dalla Rowney. It's a great grade paper, and it's quite cheap because some of the other kind of papers are quite expensive. And finally, this is one that I use more than any other paper. This one is done by Bockingford. It's a watercolor paper. It comes in 3 different grades. Again, I'm going to go through all this, but I find that this paper is probably the most versatile and the most forgiving in terms of watercolor and ink. But again, I will go through all of this in the paper video that I do. So I guess that kind of rounds it up for today's video. So it was just a kind of quick little look at the type of supplies that I'm going to be going through in the series, in the videos that are coming. I mean, in the end of the day, if you don't want to do traditional, if you don't want to use traditional materials, by all means use digital. Go all out on digital. I mean, if you have an iPad Pro or any type of tablet that you have. So for example, if you've got an iPad Pro, this is my iPad Pro here. And Apple Pencil, I would use these. I mean, don't just use these as media consumption devices. Use these as your kind of art tools. These are great to kind of like, work on the go. However, there is a disadvantage that, something like this is going to cost you so much money that, you're always going to be careful where you put it, or, whether you want to take it out with you or not. That is kind of a bit of a disadvantage, but whereas with the sketchbooks, I mean, you're only taking away with you something that's worth what, £3 or £4 or £3 or £4 or whatever, and you're not going to miss it if it kind of gets lost, or if someone nicks it off you. But I doubt they're going to nick your sketchbook. They're more likely to nick one of these. How it is today. The world's going crazy. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you're excited for the videos to come, because I definitely am. So please give the video a thumbs up. Please also subscribe to the channel for more content, and do stay tuned for upcoming news announcements on my new book that I'm going to release. I'm publishing a book on this actual whole theme of getting back into art, so do keep an eye out for that. And thank you so much for your time and help. Have a great day, have a great evening. Please share this channel with others, and thank you so much for your support. So take care of yourself, and peace.